Remember we played together.
Damage block is a flat value that is tied to armor. The value blocked becomes less as armor increases. In case of minus armor, the value blocked increases. Evasion is a multiplier to effective HP against physical damage. While the percent value goes up multiplicatively, effective HP goes up exponentially. Of course, an MKB can ruin all of that. Note in this graph, the percentage block represents the amount blocked by damage block or evasion. Attack speed is simply a DPS multiplier. Move speed is a much more versatile attribute that helps with positioning. When chasing a target, a move speed advantage becomes critical to DPS. Move speed advantages become less relevant as attack speed increases, but will always be required when chasing a target. With enough move and attack speed, you can reach 100% DPS efficiency, as if your target were standing still when you're chasing. When it comes to positioning, it's important to note that competitive games have much less leniency than pubs. Watch the Lycan and Shadow Fiend BKB both get kited as Radiant reposition themselves in a choke point where the AoE abilities can be used to their full effect. Effective HP is important to positioning, in that we want to be able to calculate what we can survive. A frontliner needs to be able to potentially sustain 5 heroes focusing them, while a backliner needs to be able to be close enough to counter initiate but far enough away to not get caught by a gap closer or an AoE ability. You want to think about effective HP not as a mathematical calculation, but more of an ability to counterplay. With no ability to counterplay, you may as well have no HP. For example, if a Storm Spirit jumps on a Keeper of the Light, in a vacuum, it's extremely unlikely Keeper survives, but if someone is sitting behind Keeper with a Force Staff and a Glimmer Cape, the effective HP is significantly higher. Essentially, both how your opponents and allies itemize determines how you should be positioning. Vision plays a huge role in how to position, and unfortunately it involves a lot of guessing. It boils down to a much larger core concept, macro analysis. Vision is one of those things you often just can't be sure of until you go back and watch the game and see, that's where they have wards. That's why I kept getting de-warded, that's why I kept getting smoke ganked in my jungle. Oftentimes, you'll go back in the replay and watch yourself die to a gank that you had vision of, or saw the Invisarean get picked up by an Earthshaker and just continue to farm in lane. Which is why vision is one of those things that even if you have it, it won't make a difference unless you stay focused. There are many aspects to macro analysis, firstly being hero picks. Each player has a position that has a different objective. Their objective will determine how they itemize and scale their abilities. Drafts that lack the ability to control the map or do building damage will have to adapt their playstyle. Every draft has a pick order and one team will pick first while the other team picks last, and it's important to consider the opportunity to get countered 5 times versus the ability to counter 5 heroes. Comfort plays a huge role in the pick order. PBD says comfort is the most determinant factor when it comes to picking a hero. If we can play and win versus our counters, we have no counters. Positioning and map awareness is one of the first things everyone learns about in Dota. However, correct positioning and proper map awareness are rare sights to behold in the depths of the trenches. Paying attention to the mini-map is merely one aspect of map awareness. Taking advantage of knowing your opponents cannot TP or will not have enough mana to both TP and use their spells is when map awareness begins to pay off. Being able to predict when items will come online is invaluable if you can prepare for a Blink Dagger or slow down a Battle Fury by ganking. Sometimes it feels like no matter how well you played, it just wasn't enough. The complexities of high-level Dota strategy can still be broken down into 3 main strategies of split push, teamfight, and pick off. Split push prevents teamfight lineups from grouping up prevents pickoffs, and split pushing sets you up to get picked off. Having the proper tools to execute a strategy is important to understanding the win condition. Without a clear win condition, it can be harder to take advantage of power spikes or punish greedy opponents. You might have the best teamfight draft in the world, but if your only hard disables are Black Hole and Ravage, an Anti-Mage might be ungankable for the entirety of the laning stage, which sets you up to get split pushed during the power spikes and potentially never come online. DPS frontliners are your typical position 1 heroes. They take a long time to come online but have both high survivability and high DPS, making them late game monsters. DPS initiators are typically non-scaling DPS cores that provide scaling utility for the rest of the team to deal damage, often providing an early to mid-game power spike that can snowball into a late-game advantage. DPS backliners are those annoying fucks that hide in the trees and pop out with their shadow blades to deal 1,000,000 damage, but touch them once and they'll explode. Utility frontliners are your standard aura builders that provide a level of crowd control. Oftentimes, they will be in charge of slowing down pushes or baiting teams to group up to get initiated on. Utility backliners are the late-game playmakers who have to operate with little to no farm, so typically have large cast ranges to make up for the lack of mobility. Not all drafts will have one of each of these things, and you don't necessarily need each one to win, but these concepts exist for a reason. They work. Meshing these ideas with reactive drafting gives you the best chance of coming out of the pick stage with an advantage. Identifying strengths and weaknesses is usually a simple task of guessing what the lanes might be, and trying to predict how much farm each lane will get. Finding vulnerabilities in the lanes will help you understand where you should gank, and where your opponents will try and gank you. Critical mass is a level of farm that becomes no longer manageable, and places the opponents in a defensive position. A common critical mass is a Manta style on Anti-Mage. Without AoE damage or disable, the DPS output becomes too high and impossible to counterplay. Solutions to critical masses can be to apply early game pressure to slow down the timing, or waiting for your own critical mass that you believe to be more massive than your opponent's. It's important a team knows the solution and is working together. Solutions will range in reliability. Skill shots are often unreliable, but can be made more reliable through teamwork. Mirana's arrow is a slow-moving projectile. During daytime, it's fairly easy to dodge, but good luck doing that when you're nightmared. Looking at the scoreboard is where most people do their analysis, as it does tell you a lot about what happened. In a loss, determining what went wrong is usually countless micro-mistakes I call GPM and XPM leaks that lead up to a couple of really bad macro mistakes. In a win, we can still learn a lot. Don't confuse not getting punished for mistakes as not making mistakes. Going back and watching a replay, we can see why we died. We can see how we could have been more efficient. We can see the kills we should have gotten. Key macro decisions boils down to how impactful we were throughout the game, and opens up questioning the builds used, wards placed, when you pushed, if Roshan was attempted, and the very interesting debate of whether our decisions were optimal or could have been improved. Determining a skill to work on is the goal of post-game analysis and lets us go into the next game with something to improve upon.
Remember we played together.